right. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I really appreciate it. So let's get right into this. So on the panelists today, we have Jeff Avenzio. He's our elementary school principal. Karen Jones. She is our PPS director and special education director. Jim Southard is our assistant superintendent for our business. And Jen Droughts is the middle school principal. Richard Shea could not be here today. He's our new high school principal. He had a scheduled vacation. He was going to try to log in from Alaska. I don't think he probably has service. So that is all right. He will be back, but he is here and he's been working very diligently on trying to reopen the building as well. So really quick before I begin, if you've never been on a WebEx before, tonight there's 109 people currently on. I'm sure there might be people influxing back and forth a little bit. There is a question and answer component that we have throughout the time here. There's a button on your bottom right-hand side that you should see, and it says Q&A. I hope you can all find that. What that does is that sends a question to the panelists. Mr. Vivenzio is going to be taking those questions, and he will be asking them as we go on, finding spots to be able to ask it. And then I will be answering it, or one of the building principals or Mrs. Jones, if we know, we can be able to answer that as well. If there's repeat questions, Mr. Vivenzio may not ask your question because it's already been asked, because sometimes that does happen with duplicate questions with 116 people now currently on. But I just want to make you aware that that is one that is there. And Mr. Sapienza is also on, but he's on as an attendee. So I can switch him over later, but I just want to really get into this tonight. So I'm going to begin. I have a presentation for all of us. So I'm going to share that as we go, and we will start moving forward. And I do not like technology. I'm not the best at it.
We can see it, Frank.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Jeff. All right. I hope, and it's big enough that everyone can see it.
I can't tell if the parents can see it. Can someone just type in the chat box? Yes, you can see it in the Q&A.
Do we have one in there on the question?
I didn't see anybody in the Q&A, but it looks good on my end.
They can see it. They're all typing and they can see it.
All right, Karen. So if you can see the Q&A, could you also do that component?
Yep.
Excellent. All right.
Oh, I got them all now as well. Beautiful.
Yeah, and I now lost it for some reason. Okay, there we go. So I think first and foremost, even before I begin the presentation, I have to say this. We're really dedicated to getting our students back into the building. The one thing is right now, we still don't have a lot of firm guidance. At 4:30 today, New York State Education Department put out guidance. So, we're constantly shifting and walking through this. It's a work in progress. At no time are we trying to not give the information. And that's kind of the point of tonight. The point of tonight is I want to share everything that we currently know and we're currently doing. This is going to change drastically as the weeks go on. There are some key points that we definitely know we can keep, but by September, we still might be finalizing this program. So I want everyone to understand that this is a real work in progress and we're continually modify it. And anything I share tonight is really up to subject to change. So it's just a status quo of where we are. We're getting to the third week in August. We just recently got some guidance from New York State Education Department. So, it's a work in progress in a very short time frame. As we begin tonight, I think this is really important for us to state, and I understand and we understand that there's a clear recognition of polarized views on masking and vaccination. And I understand that and I respect everyone's viewpoints on this. The intent of this plan is not to isolate our students, staff, and views of the community. The district endeavors to be responsible in terms of mitigating the spread of COVID while balancing the provision of educational and extracurricular activities and the health and preservation of safety. I just do ask tonight that we focus on other aspects of opening and not discussing the efficacy of masking at this time. We can have those conversations. I've been having conversations with people by email. We've been doing this, but tonight really is all about what we're doing as a school and how we're addressing it at this moment. I did this with the staff too today. I always have ground rules. So, and these go for myself as well. We will participate fully and share our experiences. We will listen with respect and with intent to understand. We'll keep the best interests of students at the center of our work. We'll discuss positions, not people. We'll do our best to remove our biases, and we'll be open, honest, and respectful. And most of all, we'll celebrate the positives. And I think that's the most important thing, because here is the positive. We're committed to bringing all students back full person instruction time for all grades 5 days a week. That's the big deal. I mean, from last, 2 years ago, almost a year and a half, March, we've been on this crazy schedule, and our students have been all off and our staff have been all off. We're getting back into a sense of normalcy as best as humanly possible, given the guidelines that we're dealing with. Right now, I mean, I think it's important for us to kind of understand where we are, and the ever-changing plans are fluid. We are working along with the Capital Region BOCES, with 24 other superintendents, the Albany County Department of Health, to continually look at everything that includes school opening and athletics. As you know or don't know, August 4th, Dr. Zucker finally said that we are not getting guidance from New York State Department of Health, even though we have been expecting it for quite some time. He did make a statement to follow the CDC guidance. Then we're working with Albany County Department of Health. They've talked about layered protection strategies and indoor masking, screening, testing, ventilation, and hand washing. From that point on, today, on August 11th, the Education Commissioner sent out notification that we were getting guidelines and frameworks. Today, we actually received those guidelines and frameworks. Mr. Vivenzio and I were talking shortly before the meeting that we feel bad that we didn't have time to shift through it, but it's 21 pages. And we don't want to miss anything. So I'm not going to address the guidance that's there to its full ability, because I just haven't gotten to it yet. I mean, it's only been a couple hours. So I do hope you understand that I can't share what's on the guidance at this time. I have a small understanding of it because I glanced it only. So where does this leave us? Jeff, is there any questions, or Karen, are there any questions yet? Okay. There are multiple items that are still yet to be determined, as I already stated. Some of the information in this document is baseline assumptions, and I want to provide you with some of the understanding of what to expect. But again, to be honest, we're still sifting through this, and I can't give you a clear "thou shalt do this" as a school district, because we're not there yet. And I don't think any district in the area is. I did just put this on here, the CDC guidelines. You can go to it. I am not going to go over those. What I am going to go over is the approach that we're taking as a district. And I think this is more important. We're looking at taking a layered mitigation approach. And NICEA did say that this is one thing we should be doing, so that's good. The measured approach is going to be nuanced by looking at the rates of community transmission and being able then to have levels. So if we're at a high rate of community transmission, we're going to do X, Y, Z. And if we're at a low rate of community transition, we'll probably be doing not much of anything. So it's a very clear kind of understanding of those things. So it's not a blanket statement of here's what we're going to do. The intent is to make sure that we prioritize health and safety, but support our social, emotional, mental health of students and staff. It's fluid, it's constant, we're constantly moving, but these are challenging times, and we're trying to move forward with the best of it. If you were at the board meeting on Monday, this has changed. So I'm going to share this document. Oh my goodness, is it not linking? Look at that. It is not working.
Frank, you may have to go into the actual play, play the slideshow, so you can click it from in there.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so if you actually play the slideshow, and the link should be active from in there.
Jeff, look at that. Awesome. Thank you so much. I am going to zoom it in. I think people will probably have a little bit of a difficult time reading this. And again, this is all a work in progress, so please understand that. And we're going to get right into it. So right now we're looking at total new, these are the indicators that we're utilizing at this moment in time. NICEA is sent out.
Frank, we don't see it right now.
It doesn't show it?
I don't think the participants can see it either.
Yeah, we just see a blank screen right now.
All right, I'm just going to do one more thing then. I apologize, everybody. This is what our teachers have dealt with throughout the year as well with technology. I do want to, it happens. I am going to open it up on a different thing and share it out in a different way. So just bear with me for 2 seconds and I will take care of it. All right. All right, now let's try this. I'm going to try one more time. I think I might be able to get it. Jeff again, or Karen, please. Somebody tell me what I'm doing so everybody, I know that everybody can see it.
We see the district current page.
Hold
We
on.
see your PowerPoint.
Right, and that's not what I wanted to do. Bear with me. I'll go back to that later. Try it one more time. Does anybody see this sharing? It says still sharing. All right, I'm gonna try this one more time because it did say I was sharing it.
Yeah, we just see we were seeing your PowerPoint and then the blank screen.
What are you seeing now?
Blank gray screen. It says you're starting to share, but then it doesn't share.
Okay. I'm going to try one more time. I do apologize, everybody. Thank you for bearing with me. I'm sure there's a lot of rolling eyes at the moment. I am rolling my own. So I do apologize. We're going to get it, I swear. And the funny thing is I practiced this before the meeting tonight. All right, one more time. So, all right, I'm just going to read it. I'm sorry. I'll post this up on the website. I do apologize, but I don't want to waste your time as well. So there's layered mitigation. We are looking at doing, and there's different colors. It goes from low to high transmission rates. And one of the indicators is total new cases per 100,000 in the past 7 days, and then percentage of the tests that are positive during the past 7 days. So those are the two different ones. I did have conversations with Department of Health. We're still working through this to making sure what we're going to utilize. And so it's a work in progress, as I said. So COVID vaccinations, again, I'm really angry that I can't share this with you. COVID vaccinations, we're going to strongly encourage them, as we have been since the beginning. We've done a couple clinics already. We're going to plan on doing more clinics as we move on. COVID testing.
Frank, I have a quick question for you. Sorry, it kind of does imply to what you're going at here. So the question was, how are you defining community in terms of transmission rates and the layered mitigation approach? Are we talking by county, by school district, by town? That was a question I thought that was relevant.
Yep, that's a good question. So right now I'm working with Department of Health to work through that. It all depends on the testing that we have and how we're being able to do this. So if it's going by zip code 12186, but it also says we have to look at the two, right? One of the higher ones. So it's either we're taking the higher of the two different ones. So if one's lower and one's higher, we have to take the higher one at this moment in time. This is a work in progress that we're working with Department of Health because it goes along with COVID-19 testing. We're looking at doing possible pool testing with Albany County Department of Health. As you saw, Saratoga County came out and said that they're doing pool testing with their students in Saratoga County. I'll explain what pool testing is. It's based on saliva. You still have to have parent request, but it's a very simple test. They spit in it, and it's just basically done, and we move forward. It's very quick. It's very simple, but that testing is going to be one that we're going to be working on with using Albany County. If we can get numbers for our in-house school community, that will be something that we'll look at utilizing in our plan as we move forward. I hope that answered the question. So, all right, I'm going to try sharing one more time because this is making me crazy.
There's a few more questions, Frank, but I think that you're going to get to some of those answers a little bit later on, so I'll keep my eye on them. Frank, you're muted.
Yeah, I see the question regarding masking, and that is one thing that I'm not going to, say why the district feels or doesn't feel. That was in the beginning. I'm not going to go over the discussion regarding that. I just want to talk about what we're doing and how we're doing it at this point in time. So regarding face mask indoors, if there's low community transmission, we're not going to have any face masks. If it's moderate community transmission, it's going to be encouraged for all but required for unvaccinated adult staff and students. Substantial community transmission is going to be required for all indoors vaccinated and unvaccinated, and it's same for high community transmission, required for all indoors vaccinated and unvaccinated. The guidance that I looked at today from NICED did support this, but I looked at it very quickly, and again, I'm still going on. Monitoring community transmission based on school transmission, school-based transmission. That's one that we're going to be working on with the Department of Health. If we can get those pool testings and get large sample numbers of our students, we'll have a school-based transmission number to go by. But that's something that we're working on, and hopefully we'll have more information as the weeks go on. So the CDC came out in breaking news a couple hours ago recommending not requiring masks of indoors for schools for now. It's a conversation that we're going to have, but right now we're following CDC guidance. So I'd like to see that guidance and move forward with a conversation with the board. So social distancing indoors, this is important. If it's low community transmission, there is really no social distancing in schools. We're doing 3-foot distancing across the board at this point in time, except for lunches. I'll explain that. So that's how we're able to get our students in. And it's going to be, at this time, 3-foot distancing in masks for unvaccinated adults and students. The New York State Department of Health has stated that there will be larger quarantine numbers for unmasked individuals in schools. So let's say I'm in a classroom of 3rd graders and I have a student who is not masked and that student tests positive. New York State Department of Health will most likely be quarantining a large number of those students, possibly the whole class, in comparison to the 6-foot radius that I'll get to in a moment. School visitors, there will be no restriction when it's low, minimal and masked, and then 3 feet distance in mask when it's substantial, and then 3 feet distance and masked for use of facilities by outside organizations, and people will be limited. But at this moment in time, we don't want to stop people coming in our buildings. We really want to take a layered approach and see how things go. We want our buildings open. We're a school community building, so we want to still continue doing that. Hand washing and respiratory etiquette, we're going to continue to encourage that. A lot of things we did last year worked, so we want to continue doing the things that we know worked and kept the infections out of the buildings. Quarantining, it's yes for a 6-foot close contact perimeter for more than 10 minutes, and that will be a 10-day quarantine. No quarantine for vaccinated individuals. This will be subject to Albany County Department of Health guidance. As I said, that could change, but that's what we're currently on. Good. I'll get to a lot of these. Thank you, Jeff, because there's a lot of these that I still will be getting to. Quarantine, staying home when sick, we do want that. At this moment in time, I did say on Monday that we were looking at doing attestations. I'm going to talk to Albany County Department of Health, but I don't think we will be doing the attestations at this point. But we are going to be having people stay home if they're sick. I want to make sure we get symptoms and have an understanding of what that works like. But at this point in time, I think we're going to stop the attestations until I hear otherwise. Cleaning and disinfection, again, it's going to be daily routine and daily disinfection of high-touch surfaces. As we move forward, we're going to do daily disinfection of moderate and high-touch surfaces. So, you know, it's layered again of what we do and how we do it. Cafeteria, we're looking at 6 feet social distancing when we're in substantial and high cases. We have been able to make this work in the elementary school. It's been difficult, but Mr. Vivenzio's worked really hard to make that work. In the high school, we did have to order more tables, but we do have an opportunity for that. So we do believe that our lunches will be safe and appropriate. Ventilation and air quality, we're going to continue with the same work that we did last year. Transportation, masks are required at all times. That is per the federal government, and it's windows open, and we're going to use a seating chart. So that is one thing that we're allowed. There is no social distancing on buses. That was one thing that I did read today in NICED. So, you know, if parents, you know, they want to drive their students, we can encourage them. You know, that is really up to you, but we do encourage you to drive your child if you so wish to. All right, high-risk sports, because I did see that being a question that was out there. So
Yeah, the question, Frank, was in regard to, do they have to wear a mask while playing sports?
Yeah, so,
I think that's two layered, whether it's inside or outside is probably the question.
yep. And again, this one, there's a lot of debate out there on this one. Because, some people believe that the guidance of high-risk sports went out in June. And, they're trying to figure this out, where we stand with high-risk sports, moderate risk sports. And a lot of people are working on this. I said we have Capital Region BOCES with all different BOCES around the areas are working together on guidance with this, along with Section 2 and NISVA, and working through all the different departments of health. So what I'm going to share today is a generic thing of what we think is going to happen. It may not be guaranteed. So high-risk sports, outdoors. Masks optional for athletes and spectators. 3 feet social distancing for spectators and students when not participating. So we're really going with the outside no masks across the board most of the time when it comes for majority of our items. So like when kids are outside doing different items in school, no masks. High-risk sports, and that's football and volleyball, which is coming up now. Masks are optional for athletes and spectators. 3 feet social distancing for spectators and students when not participating. There will be a COVID testing component into this. We're not sure if it's substantial or moderate. We have to talk to Albany County Department of Health and look at the NICE guidance. And the spectators will be limited, but that's to be determined because we want to look at all factors. When it is mask required, when it's high, it's going to be mask required for unvaccinated athletes and spectators. 3 feet social distancing for spectators and students when not participating. Pending the guidance, that will be weekly testing for unvaccinated students. One of the recommendations was only vaccinated students can play high-risk sports when it's in a high area. We're going to be looking at all that, but right now we're not going with that. We're looking at doing a testing component to make sure that we can get all kids to be able to play. I hope that answered that question.
Frank, and you might get to this at some point, but there's a number of questions about quarantining, the instruction, what that will look like for our quarantine students, especially with no remote. So I know at some point we're going to get to that, but that's been coming up quite a bit.
So I will do that because we just did talk about quarantining. And again, I do apologize that you can't see my screen. It's infuriating, but I hope my ranting is not that bad. So right now, the number of staff remain unvaccinated. We do not have a good count of that, but we have a majority of our staff members who are vaccinated, and we'll be working with our unions to be able to go through that. Let's talk about quarantining. Okay. We are working with our teachers. We met today to develop quarantine options since there is no virtual option, and we're going to make sure that we give every option to our students to make sure that they can learn while they're out. The virtual streaming in isn't the best model for students, and a student just watching a classroom, it can work, but there are better ways that we can find to be able to do this. Our staff had some very good ideas today. Our administrators are going to be working with our teachers to find the best options for our students to make sure that they don't lag on instruction when there is there. So I hope that helps with those answers. If a vaccinated teacher tests positive, who does not show symptoms, how long will they have to be quarantined? That goes out to the Albany County Department of Health. The teacher themselves, I believe it's going to be based on the typical 10 days that they've been doing. If it's for the people that are around them, again, if the teacher is masked and didn't show symptoms, it'll be within that 6-foot radius. So again, that is to be determined by Albany County Department of Health. I have to work with them. I'm not a medical professional, and they're the epidemiologists in that case. So I'm going to keep reading it through, and then I'll go back to questions in a moment. All right. High-risk activities, art, singing, playing wind instruments. We want to get this back. Our music programs kind of were decimated with COVID, and we want to be able to, it's been shown that it can be done and be done safely. So we want to do that for our students. So social distancing is to be determined for all of these when it goes from low to high. I have to work with Mr. Jansen, Albany County Department of Health, but I don't believe it's going to be over 6 feet at the most, which is a completely doable social distancing model for our students. Bell covers are going to be required for instruments. Masks are going to be required for unvaccinated singers when it's only moderate. When it's substantial or high, everyone will be masked. Of course, that's what we've had since the beginning. I did really quickly look at NICED guidance. There did talk about a component of testing for people who are in choir. I have to look at that and then work out with Albany County Department how that is going to work, or if that's something we're going to follow in through. I do believe it's going to be very similar to sports. because of the respiratory symptoms that go along with it. So that is something that we'll be working on. I do apologize again that you could not see that layered mitigation chart. That is one thing that I wish I did and had up. And again, like I said, I tested it and it wasn't there. All right, so moving on. If a vaccinated teacher or student is positive, we did that. I'm going to answer some questions as we go. Are kids 5 days a week, and will they be required to have classes in pods as they did last year? So they are 5 days a week across the board, K through 12. We are not going to be requiring students to be in like quote unquote pods. We will be cohorting to the best of our abilities at the elementary school. There might be times where, you know, in the best interest of students with remediation concerns and gap analysis, that we might mix students together, but those students are typically cohorted anyways in grade levels. But in the middle school and high school, we're going back to a more traditional model of education within the classroom. We are not allowed to share vaccinations of who's vaccinated and who's not. That's an issue right at the moment. So I can't share that. Someone did ask, are we allowed to know if our child's teacher and aides are vaccinated? That's not something that I can share. I couldn't share if a child is vaccinated with an adult, and I can't share if a staff member is. Will the high schools have to bring their laptop to school every day? Will they be able to use a locker and leave materials? Great question. Yes, we can use lockers. So middle school students, and we're looking on cubbies for the elementary school. We are, as a district, looking for going towards a one-to-one model for our students. It's going to be a little bit of work, but we're going to be able to have an opportunity for our students to have laptops that will go with them or stay home. It's still a work in progress. But if a kid has a personal laptop and they would like to bring it in, they still are able to, but we should have more than enough to be able to accommodate a student while in school.
Frank, I think they asked if you could post that chart on the website or send out a link later, which I think you mentioned you were going to, correct?
I absolutely am. I do apologize that it's not up. And I will ask Jeff or Jen to help me send a school messenger of just a link later on so people can have it. All right. Can we ensure that our child is not placed with an unvaccinated teacher? I cannot do that. At this point in time, that I don't believe that's something that as an employer I'm allowed to do. And because then it's talking about who's vaccinated and who's not vaccinated. So if we're not comfortable with our kids who can't be vaccinated yet, they don't have to wear a mask. That has to go through a medical note from our doctors, and it has to work through our medical professional. Not comfortable with our students can't be vaccinated yet. It's got to be for medical issues that regarding mask wearing. Otherwise, masks are going to be, at this point in time, mandated. Will students be able to have lockers? Yes. Will they be sixth grade person orientation? Mrs. Droughts, do you know that answer?
The sixth grade teachers actually spend part of the first 2 days doing a full orientation with all of the students. They have actually an excellent program put together that they do with them the first 2 days of school.
Okay. I actually,
Oh, go ahead.
I'm gonna do one other thing really quick that I know that I can do. So I can actually copy this link and share it with you in the chat. No, there's not a chat box. I will send it out. Sorry about that.
All right. I had a question, Frank, about kind of about specials. If you don't mind, I don't mind answering.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so at this time, we are planning to go back to as much of a normal special schedule as possible. For those of you that are new, we have a 6-day schedule at the elementary school. During those 6 days, there's 2 days of PE, 2 days of music, 1 day of art, and 1 day of library. And yes, at this time, our plan is to be as normal as possible. They'll have their regularly scheduled PE, art, library, and music classes. There's still some things to work out in terms of the guidelines when it comes to singing and chorus and band and things like that. But as you'll see in that chart that Frank's going to post on the website, we're pretty much a full go as best as we can.
So I'm going to keep going and then I'll answer more questions. The current modeling based on the recommendations that we have talks about students who have immunocompromised or direct family members in the household may not be able to get COVID and be a very serious issue. We are having a virtual option for them. We're working with BOCES as a regional component. I did send out a survey and we got an interest survey. The principals will be sending out something soon to the families. That regional component is going to be based off of New York State standards, and the students will be taught by a wide variety of teachers from other areas and districts. but it's a full year program for students who cannot be in school due to the risk of getting COVID either for their family or for themselves. First day of school is going to be September 8th. And then we're right on. Middle school, high school will start at 7:35. And
8:30.
And then elementary school is going to start at 8:30.
Yeah. Frank, there was a couple questions in there for me too. If you don't mind, I have no problem answering.
Well, okay, 1 second, because I'm almost done. Then I'm just going to go to questions.
Oh, perfect.
So then we'll just give a quick opportunity. You also see on the PowerPoint that I'm also going to send home along with the link. Again, I do apologize for this. You'll see that if you have questions after this, a lot of these questions may be at the building levels. So please send them to your responsive principals. They're listed: Jeff Avenzio, Jennifer Drounce, and Richard Shea. Any questions they have, they will also be getting to me as well. We talk constantly and get those answers. So I do want to state that, and then I'm going to move on to questions. Will gym classes be normal again? To the best of our ability, they will be normal. Again, we have to look at what the guidance is on respiratory and those things. We're going to do a majority of our items outside. We learned a lot with COVID last year. And the one thing we did learn is we have an outside, and our teachers took advantage of that. And it was great for our students. It was great for our staff, and we're not going to lose it. We want to be able to use our outside facilities as much as possible. Middle schoolers, the question was, will they be changing classes? Yes. And that was answered. Will there be a letter coming home? The building principals will be sending out notifications. I'm going to be sending out something as well basically this at the moment to the whole school community when we're done. But as soon as we get more information regarding the full district protocols, I'll be having another one of these parent forums and making sure that someone else does the presentation instead of me, so that it works. But we'll be doing this again because I definitely want to make sure we share all this information. We will be sending more and more information as time goes on. We're just getting the ball rolling. All this information came out last week, and we're just trying to sift through all of it as it keeps going. Will VES students be permitted to share sports equipment in gym class? And I think this is actually really good in general about sharing of equipment. We've seen that it's not as much as touch and tactile. So we're kind of going with the fact that we can do a lot more sharing as long as we have good hygiene protocols. The teachers are going to try to mitigate it as best as possible. So if it's a point where we're just doing dribbling and it can be on their own, one student, one ball, that's fine. But in say lab classes where it's going to be detriment to the classroom, we definitely want to make sure they can share some lab materials. So yes, a little bit more sharing. Again, we're trying to get it back to a more normalcy for our students. Will the BS students be permitted? We just answered that. Will parents be allowed in the school? Yes, that was one thing that you will be able to see. We want our parents to come back in. It, depending on where we are in our transmission rates, though, is going to mean how we do that. So, if it's 150 parents in comparison to, 10 or 20, and it's also going to be weighed upon if students are in session. So let me explain that. So if we have school in session and we have all of our kids here, I'm not going to bring 200 parents in. But if we have the ability to have after school and there aren't students here, then I feel very comfortable bringing in 200 parents or bringing in a community that we can do with proper distancing. So it's really going to be based on our metric of if our students are in school or if they're not in school and what the transmission rates are. So asking parents, so you say you can't tell us who's vaccinated, not vaccinated. So how will you go about asking parents if their child is vaccinated or not? The nurses have a responsibility to get vaccination and immunizations, and they do that. So we'll be working through our nurses to have that information. Will there be parent choice for students wearing masks? As I said at this time, masks are mandated. Sounds great. Okay, my sons are starting 7th grade and did not have an orientation involving lockers last year as they did not use them. Will there be some sort of orientation and insistence in particular with lockers? Are they dial locks or key locks? Jen, can you answer that?
Yes, so actually for the first and hopefully last time ever, our 7th grade teachers will be doing a very similar orientation that our 6th grade teachers do with introducing students to lockers, how to use them, how to open them properly, and actually tour of the building, since they were the students that were in pods last year, even those in the building, really never left our hallway. So that will also be taking place with the 7th grade so they can get comfortable with lockers.
So someone asked, how do you sign your child up to take the bus? If you didn't already do that, or isn't that already registered? Ann Potts is our transportation director. I am going to send back to this person who asked it their email address. It's apotts@voorheesville.org. Please contact Ann about any questions regarding transportation, and she'll make sure that she takes care of that. What is the status of the ventilation system in the elementary school? The elementary school is all MERV 11s in all of their units in their classrooms. They have MERV 13s in large group spaces in the elementary school, but they actually have really great air circulation. So when we did our study last year and went through it, the elementary school is getting 12 to 14 air exchanges per hour in the room. So they have some of the best circulations with those UVs that are in there. So it's actually univentilators. So that's actually a really good thing. How do you determine whether a student is vaccinated or not for masking requirement purposes? That's something we're going to be working forward. We don't have an answer on that, to be very honest. If an elementary student is required to quarantine because of classroom exposure, will a vaccinated older sibling will be required to quarantine? So if you don't know this, I have 4 children in the district. So this is something that I dealt with on a very daily basis, it seemed. Because remember last year, Albany County recommended that we keep out asymptomatic siblings of students. So if one child had a cold, the other child had to stay home. We're not doing that this year at this moment in time. So let's talk about, I lost some of the questions, I'm sorry. There we go. So if you're quarantined and vaccinated, Department of Health will actually talk to you as your family. So if your sibling is quarantined, they'll tell you if you have to quarantine or who you have to quarantine in your house. Typically, if you have a positive child, they're going to quarantine your own home. If we're dropping off kids at the middle school, what time and how early can they be dropped off? I don't know if we have a direct answer for that yet, Jen.
We usually go with by 7:15, 7:20. We hope to have someone here to monitor students down in the cafeteria area. That's our plan right now. Usually by 7:15, class begins at 7:35.
Will the pool reopen for swim lessons? Yes. We're doing our best to find. We've actually posted on the website. We're looking for a swim coordinator. If you're interested in being a swim coordinator for the district, please reach out to Joe Sapienza. But we do want to reopen the pool back up for swim lessons. Has the district considered a later start time for high school like our neighboring districts? We are looking into that. Bethlehem and Guilderland spent years doing a study doing that. We are going to start looking into that this year and investigating into that situation, but it hasn't been done prior. So no, not this year, but it is something that we're going to be moving and looking into. If the new school messenger is not working for activating our accounts, how can we fix that so we can keep up to date with all of the new information? If you have a child in the district, you have an eSchool account, your eSchool information, if updated correctly, you can contact your I believe, building level secretaries. Am I correct in saying that? Jeff and Jen? They can update your information. We pull that information from it, so we automatically should activate you. So I'm hoping that's the right answer. If Cassidy Morrison, if you're still having issues with this, I think you're the person who asked it, but other people probably are having issues too. Please shoot me an email and I will find out who the right person is and I'll make sure that we get some help for you on that.
Frank, if I could jump in on that as well. Students, I know 612, I'm sure there's something similar in the elementary school. They will get a packet to bring home the second day of school. There is an update your profile portion to that where parents can send in updated information. And it should be set up on eSchool when report cards. When schedules are posted the end of next week, the first time a parent logs in, it has them check their information and they can update all of that so it will hopefully sync correctly.
Thanks, Jen. Also, the school messenger has an app. I believe we send out information. We will be sending out more information. The app allows you to actually have everything there and searchable, and a lot better than just having all these SNN emails that you have to sift through and probably miss a few. The app will allow you to have them organized. And as we go forward, it'll even do more, but we're just starting off with the basics at this time. Well, high school schedules come out soon. I believe they're coming out next week, if I'm not wrong in saying that. I believe Monday or Tuesday, Jen?
At end of next week, they should be unclicking some buttons to make them live. Mr. Shea and I will both be sending out notices on that.
I apologize. Okay. Regarding bus transportation for the upcoming year, strongly encourage family to drop off and pick up if possible. We are encouraging you to do so. One of the reasons is our Salem Hills, our Weatherfield, and our Scotch Pine neighborhoods are packed, and our buses are packed in that regard. So, you know, to be able to help stop some of that overcrowding on our buses, and we're trying to do routes, but again, bus shortages, bus driver shortage is always an issue in districts. If any of you on here want to be a bus driver, please contact Ann Potts. We're always looking. But yes, we are encouraging people to do so. The bus windows will be open ventilation-wise, but again, if it's in the winter, it will be small cracks in comparison to summer where we'll have larger cracks in the windows. But yes, they will be open for ventilation purposes. We want to make sure we do this because what can happen is Albany County Department of Health can actually quarantine a full bus instead of just students that are around them. So if I have 40 students on a bus, I have 40 quarantine students, and then that's a lot of students missing instruction. So that's why we're trying to do all these layers on top of it so we can make sure we get it. How do we determine vaccine status? Again, this is something that we're working forward. The guidance just came out about this on NICID, to be honest with you, and it's something that I have to talk about across the board with the local superintendents, the BOCES, our unions, Albany County Department of Health, and our medical director. So still things that we're working on. And again, please, I hope you don't think I'm being flippant when I say I don't have an answer. I literally don't have an answer. I told my staff that today, and we're kind of shaking our heads. I see Mrs. Drought shaking her head. Some of these things we just don't have answers for. If somebody has a medical concern and they, because of masking, that's something that we're going to go through, and it's a reasonable accommodation that the district will work through with our medical director. So that is something that's going to be through. Just because the letter goes in doesn't automatically mean that it's approved. It does get worked through with our medical director for the district. Let's see, when do we get our teacher assignments for elementary and kindergarten? I believe they went out today. Am I correct in saying that, Jeff?
They hit the post office this afternoon, so if they didn't go out this afternoon, they'll be going out tomorrow morning at the latest.
Yeah, good. Does VCSD have a sense yet of learning loss? And if any, what's the plan for understanding acting? I love this question. There's been a lot of concern about this, but yet we haven't had a good understanding. One thing we do know is our elementary school testing that's been coming back has been coming back very strong. And we're really pleased. Some of the, majority of our results are actually very similar to where they were when students were in person the full time. So we're very happy with that. The learning loss, our teachers will be assessing it and moving forward. There is remediation aspects that we're looking at. Mr. Vivenzio is really looking at a very aggressive approach to RTI and making sure that we have students that are at the weakest areas, that they constantly get interventions. And that can change, right? Someone might be struggling with a concept in the first 4 weeks, and then the second 4 weeks, it could be somebody else because that other student now had it. So we're really trying to make sure that we have that in. He's going to hopefully be rolling that out. The COVID issues and cohorting, kind of what I mentioned in the beginning, put a little damper on that, but we want to make sure that we do our best and meet the needs of our students. For the middle school and high school, we do have intervention strategies that we're working on and extra supports for our students. So yes, we're doing a lot about that. To be clear, kids that are vaccinated will not have to quarantine, correct? I want to be clear, at this time, yes. And they're saying not vaccinated, as they're saying, though, they're also saying people who are vaccinated could have COVID as well. So I'm hoping they don't start quarantining vaccinated people. But at this point in time, if you're vaccinated, you will not have to quarantine. Someone said, thank you for your honesty. You're welcome. We are vaccinated. I heard no quarantines for vaccinated and quarantines for vaccinated. I'm concerned about loss of instruction because of someone else getting sick. Yeah. So again, it's right now, I don't believe there's any quarantines for vaccinated people. And it's only if right now it's for unvaccinated. And teachers have to quarantine, though, if vaccinated. I don't believe that's true. But if it is, we'll be working on it. Are there more questions? I've been reading each one as they come, to be very honest.
Frank, there was a question by John on locker night. And part of that, it is up to being slightly adjusted for those of you that have children, that have had children go through middle school, locker night is an event in and of itself with a large number of people. So we will probably be staggering some things, much the way the elementary school does with their drop off of supplies and come on in and see things. And we will be getting that information out now that we have some of the new guidance that I haven't read yet.
So Frank, just to piggyback off of that, there was a question way earlier about the kindergarten supply drop off, which is scheduled from the 2nd from 2 to 3. We are still planning on having the families come in to see the classroom and drop off the supplies at their cubbies. It'll shift a little bit, meaning we're not going to have all 5 sections come in at the same time. So we'll probably do a meet and greet outside and then have a few classes come in at a time to go into the classrooms, meet with the teacher, see the classroom, set supplies in their cubbies, just so that we can stagger it. But with that being said, we are also going to be putting something out in the next few weeks where we're going to offer supply drop off for pretty much all of our families. I can't guarantee that all of our staff will be here. Some staff may be here, but you'll have the opportunity to come in the building, go to your classroom, see your classroom, and then also go to your locker and drop off your supplies prior to the first day of school, just to get reacclimated with the building. And for our new families, we have a new student orientation set up for next Wednesday. And by all means, if there's anybody, new kindergarten families that are feeling a little anxious about the building, please reach out to me in the next 2 to 3 days, and I will personally set up a tour with you in the building to make sure that you feel comfortable seeing and being in the building.
Thank you, Jeff. I want to go over vaccinated and test positive because someone asked a question and I think there might be some confusion on it. So if someone is vaccinated and tests positive for COVID, they still don't have to quarantine. Now that's not true. So if they come in contact, say Jeff, Jeff is positive and I'm quarantined and I'm vaccinated, I come in contact with him, I do not have to quarantine. But if later on it comes and find out I now have COVID and I test positive, I have to now, since I have it, I do now have to quarantine. So if you're vaccinated and you come in contact with somebody, no quarantine, but if you test positive, they will always quarantine you. Are backpacks allowed in classrooms still or need to be in lockers? So we're using lockers. I don't know if they're not allowed in classrooms, to be honest with you. This is something at a building level. I believe Mrs. Droughts and Mr. Shea will be having this conversation. And maybe that answer will be coming out, but I don't think we can answer that question at this time. Middle school, high school schedules be going out. If you missed that, because I'm doing a lot of talking and rambling, I do apologize. And if I talk too fast, I am told that many times. I apologize again. We're sending out middle school schedules probably Monday and or Tuesday. And that's high school as well. Oh, and Jen answered one question. Middle school, high school schedule will be posted to eSchool at the end of next week. Mr. Shea will send out on School Messenger. Will there be a chance for parents of kids going to first grade to visit the building? Jeff answered that. Unvaccinated school employees be required to test regularly. That is something that we're going to be looking at, because if you look at our layered mitigation when you see it, high transmission rates also talks about vaccinations. We're working through that, so we don't have a good answer, but we are going through it. So if a child is sick, do they need to get tested in order to come back to school? I do not know that answer. I've asked that question, and I don't know. And I don't know if it's a rapid test. I don't know if it's a lab PCR, because we remember last year we had the whole issue with it. And also we have rapid kits. So, our goal and hope would be is we could test the child or the adult if they need to. And we do want to have on-demand testing. Since we have the ability to have these, they're here, we want to be able to help them work out with these. Someone asked if a parent can volunteer and help with testing or whatever, please reach out. I think that's fantastic. When we do our, there might be a need for that, especially if you're a registered nurse or LPN or have medical experience. We probably will be reaching out to you. I'm trying to make sure I answer all the questions. Will you test parent without parent permission? No. We will not do that. We always have to have parent consent. So that will not happen. I am hoping, though, that if we do get the pool testing, we haven't talked to Albany County yet, that is a lot more less invasive than the testing before. And again, the testing before was very simple, up the nose. This one is not even that. Pool testing, I just want to explain it very quickly. A student or a person would, take a saliva sample. It would go out. And then what they do is they put maybe 5, 6, 12, I'm not exactly sure, not a medical professional, and they put those samples into a tester, they test them all. If the whole thing comes back negative, then they move on to the next one. So you can go very, very quickly in testing students and testing staff with the pool testing. And the saliva testing is very, like, not invasive at all. And if we work with Albany County, they were hopefully going to provide this for us. That would be good. Temperature checks every morning. Is that something that's being done at the elementary school this year? At this moment in time, we're not doing attestations. The attestations were part of the temperature check. I would encourage parents to do temperature checks in the morning and check your child. You know, make sure they're not, you know, sticking the penny in the heater like we used to do sometimes when we were children. But it's not something that we're requiring at this time. Again, talking to Albany County Department of Health, and as we go through, they might change it, but at this time, we're not requiring daily temperature checks.
And Frank, can I just clarify to that question too? So our parents did temperature checks at home last year. And so here at the school, we only did temperature checks for the 3 or 4 families that might have missed doing those temperature checks last year. That's all that we did here at the school on a daily basis.
Yeah, and I'm going to answer the question. Someone asked about mandated masks. Again, our board has approved that we're going to follow CDC regulations. And again, if somebody just told me that CDC said no masks, I'd like to look at that and get that recommend and look at what this just came out. But at this point in time, we're following the CDC guidance as a school district, and that is going to be masks. But again, if we're at a moderate transmission rate, again, to be figured out, it's unvaccinated students and staff will be wearing a mask. If we're at a low transmission rate, that will be no masks needed. I do want to be clear, though, we are going to make sure that this is done very clearly to our staff and our students and share this out as time goes on. At no point in time should any individual feel shamed for either choosing or not choosing to wear a mask. And we're aggressively going to address this because I want our students and staff to feel safe, whatever choices they choose, if it ever gets to that point. I want to be clear. So if it's low and somebody still chooses to wear a mask, I want them to feel comfortable in doing so. And if someone chooses not to, I want them to feel comfortable in doing so if it's at a low moderate transmission rate. Good questions, good question. All right, what about school supply list for high school, 10th grade? I cannot find it on the webpage. I don't have that answer because Mr. Shea's not here. I believe we will let him know this question. Jen, do you have?
I think actually by 10th grade, they might be waiting until they get into their class to see something specific from the teacher. I think there's often a 9th grade list, but I think by 10, it spreads out to so many different electives that it would be too cumbersome. But I'm sure Mr. Shea can clarify that when he's back next week.
When I was a high school principal, I always encouraged families in 10th and 11th and 12th grade, buy the necessities, buy a notebook, buy pens, buy pencils, buy graph paper. You know, the things that you know you're going to need each year, especially when they're cheap and accessible. But that is definitely always a recommendation that I would give. When will we know if there is a low rate? As soon as I know, I will let everyone else know. That's really how we're going to do it. We're going to, you know, stay on top of it. And as soon as we know when things change, we will let you know. We don't foresee things changing like drastically each day. You know, there's ebbs and flows that go along with this. So that's what we're looking at. When and how do 6th grade parents get access to the eSchool portal to see schedules? Jen, can you answer that?
They actually, believe it or not, got eSchool access in 3rd grade. And chances are they haven't really had to look at it too often since then because that came through with state assessments. So when they get posted, if there's difficulty in finding that, you can contact Mr. Bartosik, our counselor, or myself, and we can basically find a way to get you the information. We would ask, please don't just Google eSchool and try to log in and create accounts because it doesn't work in that manner.
So Jen, there might have been a chance for that particular student that between COVID and the year of not taking tests, they may not have been given the portal information. I'm looking
in 3rd grade.
I'm looking it up right now to see if I can find it.
But we will be able to get the information out there. We also always have extra copies available. And certainly if you reach out, I can put one in the mail or we can scan it and email it to you.
All right, so during a moderate period, how will the school enforce mask requirement for unvaccinated? Will be honor system or more strict? I'd be honest with you, this is something that a lot of districts are going to be looking into and trying to figure out. We do not have a good answer on that. How often will the rate of transmission be assessed daily, weekly, etc.? It will be daily, and it's not just going to be our district at doing it. We are united 24 districts with the capital district BOCES, so there are 24 superintendents and school districts working together on this. So, you know, there's many of us monitoring and checking on these things, so that's a daily thing. Regarding testing, consent must be obtained no matter what type of test is done. Yep, I totally agree, and that's what I stated. At no point in time are we going to test a child without parent consent. That is, I just want to be very, very clear on that. We will not test a child when we do testing without parent consent. The parent consent that went out last year does not count. We want to do one each year. And after we understand what our testing models will be, we will be sending out that again. But again, we're absolutely not going to be doing that. One question about the procedure when a person tests positive. Those who are around that person and are vaccinated are not going to be quarantined, but they still need to test. There's no need. Again, Albany County Department of Health has not given us guidance on that. I would make a recommendation to anybody who's vaccinated that may have been around somebody that you know, that I would always get tested, especially with the Delta variant at this point in time, how contagious that it is. You know, especially that, you know, I have a mother who's medically frail. So I'm going to be getting tested very often just because I go and see her and I wouldn't want to get her sick. So I would encourage people to do that, but it's not, at this point in time, I don't believe it's a mandate or something recommended by Albany County Department of Health. I feel like I've given a lot of information and we've answered a lot of questions to the best of our ability. I'm going to give a few more minutes for more questions. Again, I really hope this was helpful. I do apologize that it wasn't the way that it exactly was supposed to run. I've asked my secretary if she could send out a school messenger for me, and she said she could. So she goes, I think I can. So I'm hoping within the next 15 minutes, I'm just going to draft something up quick so you have it and make sure that it works. And I want to get that out to you.
Hey, Frank, to that question about the parent portal, I did look up and find it. I'm going to be in the office for a little while longer. If they want to call me here, I can give them the information.
Excellent. Okay. Whoever, if that parent I think knows who they are.
Yep.
Great. 123 people have joined into this meeting. I greatly thank you for that. You know, we appreciate your partnership. We appreciate your civility. And, you know, Voorheesville is a great community. I'm a resident, been here for 16 years, almost 17 now. Yeah, 17 years. I've been. And, you know, I'm very proud to be the superintendent, as of our staff are all here. We're happy to be here. We value our kids and our students in our community. And we're just trying to do what is best to the best of our knowledge. We're educators, and we're making sure that we educate our students. That's our #1 goal. So thank you again for joining us tonight. I really appreciate all your time. I hope this was helpful, and have a wonderful evening. Oh, okay. One more thing, if your son, you mentioned the school messenger app. Is that up and running now? Can you send the link? I will see if I can send the link when I send out the other thing. It's been a long day, but yeah, we'll definitely get that out to you. I've used the app. It's fantastic. So we'll make sure I share that. All right. Have a wonderful night, everyone.